see now. Got things making headlines.
Come down. Oh, you make my high come down. Always tripping when you come around. Never have to cut you off like right now. You see, I don't have to drive me. You can say that for your mama. Maybe you should smoke something. Try the marijuana. I was loving you good. The vibe was straight. Showed you a couple of things and they feeling strange. I treated you right. Everything was a gift from a time to your bag and the color on your lip.
Welcome to the Seahawks Man-to-Man podcast, powered by Blue Wire. Shout out to the new company. My name is Michael-Shawn You guys know where to follow me on whatever Elon Musk is calling that app these days. My @ name has not changed, at Mike Dugar. That's MikeDugar. Shout out to all of our people listening and watching via YouTube. We appreciate the love and support on there. If you are listening on audio, Apple, Spotify, whatever right now, just shoot over to YouTube real fast, hit like, subscribe, and then just come right back. You know, we appreciate that love. Even if we don't get the views for it, we just need those particular things right there. Thank you for that in advance. Chris, go ahead and talk to him.
What is going on, everybody? It is your boy, Christopher Kidd. You can follow me on Twitter at CKIDD206, and that is CKid206. And also just anchoring Mike's comments regarding going to YouTube and subscribing. Please do. We're at 3,580 so subscribers. So let's get to 3,600 and try to get to 4,000 before the season starts. So we got about 4 weeks, so just under a month. Let's get us to 4K subscribers. So if you haven't and you're listening, as Mike said, go over there real quick. Takes you about 10 seconds. Search Seahawks Man-to-Man. Subscribe. That's it. Bada boom, bada bang. But we have more important stuff to get to. And that was the Seahawks' first preseason game. Mike, a lot to discuss. But where do you want to start, man? We got offense that had some good things that we saw differently. Defense. They had their starters out there. I'm sure that caught your eye immediately when you were going through the list of things. Like, damn, they really got the whole defense out there, all the starters.
Can I empathize with the audience real fast?
Mm-hmm.
So shout out to everyone who had problems watching the game because it was on Kong, and shout out to everyone who learned what Kong was today when they were looking for the game. I'm right there with you. I'm sitting there thinking, oh, it's on King 5 or whatever, usual. And then I'm like, oh, damn, the Olympics is on. So it's not on there. I'm like, channel the game on. I'm like, what the hell is Kong? So for our YouTube audience, you can see my background a little different. Mike had to shoot over to his parents' house to watch the damn game because Mike don't got Kong. Mike didn't learn what Kong was till about 2:45 local time today. And I've seen some people struggling with that as well. So, I mean, Chris, you said you had to watch the stream, right? You didn't even watch it on Kong.
Yeah, so quick story on my end. I, too, was looking for the game. I empathize with you guys as well. I couldn't find it, and then I was searching, and Seahawks.com had it. So fiance pulled it up on the TV through AirPlay and was watching it streaming. So it was all quirky, but I was able to watch the game, got some notes down and things of that nature. But, yes, Mike and I understand the issues of trying to figure out the game because I thought we had Kong TV through Hulu. Boy, was I wrong. I was searching, and the funny thing is they had the game, Mike, but I have to wait till now to watch it. The game didn't come on again until 8 p.m., so if I couldn't find anything to watch it, that includes illegally streaming it, I would then be like, yo, Mike, I got to watch the game at 8 p.m., so I wouldn't have been on Twitter. I would have been just ghostly quiet. People are probably wondering, did Chris not watch the game? No, I didn't watch it live. I watched it 2 hours later, or a few hours later, but nonetheless, Mike and I understand the problem of trying to find the game because, yeah, Kong is not where it's at, clearly.
Yeah, nah. I mean, yeah, that was just tough. I just didn't know. I've never heard of Kong. So that was my first pregame note that I wanted to throw out on here. My other pregame note was I was very happy to see Cliff Averill and Mike Bennett on the pregame show. When I did find Kong, that was cool because I turned it on. I'm like, oh, that's Mike B. Oh, that's Cliff. That was pretty cool because obviously we're starting with the new Mike Macdonald era. But it was nice to just see them on there. I already knew Mike Robb was on the he's the color guy with Kate is on the play-by-play. I already knew that part, but just seeing Cliff and Mike, that was just kind of cool, to see the in-game interviews with Cliff interviewing Jay Reed and Mike interviewing Tyler. I think Cliff also interviewed Gino. It was just kind of cool to see. That's one of my other pregame notes I wanted to throw out there. To criticize Kong. What the hell is that? Anyway, we ain't never gonna be on Kong now. We just burn that bridge. But I'm okay with that. I'm okay. King though, we can still do. Holla at us, King, not Kong. Oh, King Kong. I just put that together. Anyway, yes. Let's get to who actually did play. So you got any longtime listeners of the Seahawks Man to Man podcast know Chris and I. We don't really get down with playing the people who matter is a strong word, but you guys know what I'm saying. The people who matter, we don't feel like playing them in the preseason. The reward for not being rusty is not bigger, is not as big as the potential risk that you are by putting guys out there. Especially like I'm really strong on that. So when I saw that Mike Macdonald said, "Hey, where's all our premier guys at on offense?" Yeah, sneakers, hats. You're just along for the ride, buddy. You get a headset and you get to watch. I honestly felt a little bit of that on defense. However, with what sounds like this super complex scheme or whatever, I don't think it's that complicated. But with the new scheme, all right, you can throw them guys out there. You can make that same argument for offense, but again, health reasons, I'm not putting Gino out there. I'm not putting Charles out there. Who else didn't play? Locke didn't play.
Lockett.
DK, yeah, Noah Fant. Anybody whose last name was Fant, they didn't play. But if your name was Kobe, you did play. I just realized today they have two guys named Kobe. I knew that, but you know what I mean?
Kobe Lewis, Kobe Bryant, yep. Yeah,
it didn't click until later in the game. I was like, oh, Kobe. And then Michael Bennett kept making Kobe jokes when he was talking about Kobe Bryant. And I was like, oh, there's two guys named Kobe. Anyway.
And what's the date, Mike? It's 8/10/24.
Is that Kobe's birthday or something? Oh, no, it's jersey numbers.
No, it's jerseys, yeah.
Yeah. Crazy. But I feel like his birthday coming up too. He's got an August birthday.
Okay.
Anyway, it doesn't matter. But I was in favor of that part of it because I do feel like we're examining every part of Mike Macdonald with this, whether he plays the starters, how long he plays them. Like all this is under evaluation in his first year. So I was watching all of that. The starters only played. Let's go big picture real quick before I get into just the starters. Chris, I feel like if you're Mike Macdonald, this was probably best case scenario for your defense. Before we even get to the offense, I was very encouraged by the defense. Before we even get to any of this particular plays, they played clean. I didn't track missed tackles today because the camera angles were just awful. Another bad calling experience. I'm over here trying to chart who's on the field, bro. And they got all these ISO shots of linemen. I'm like, bro, I'm trying to see the secondary, so I can see who's in the game. And they're like, nah, we need 7 close-ups of Jaron Reed. Anyway, I didn't count that many missed tackles. Particularly with the starters. I only got one defensive penalty, and it was a neutral infraction, I think, on Mike Morris, way late in the game with like 3 minutes left. So a really clean game. I counted one busted coverage, like one obvious one that we could see, and it was late in the game. I believe it was just Marquise Blair just turning the wrong way. So there was your third stringers were in at that point. So generally speaking, perhaps in direct contrast to what some of these Pete Carroll preseason games look like with shoddy tackling, busted coverages, stuff like that. We didn't see that from Mike Macdonald and his staff. Could that be because the Chargers offense is basically UFL All-Stars? Perhaps. But either way, I thought that was like the most encouraging thing. Like when they got to the end of the game, I was like, wow, it doesn't seem like there was a lot of communication errors. Like I said, only one noticeable busted coverage. Not a lot of penalties in general, only 6, I believe. One of them being on Jason Myers. Only one defensive penalty. Wasn't a bunch of guys who act like they never wrapped up a tackler before. Like, which is good stuff. Like that, just starting right from there, whether you were starter, backup, third string, whatever. A clean game is usually a good sign of like culture and all that. So for his first game, for them to come out and just look like they kind of done this before, I was really encouraged by that.
And I think that goes back to training camp and going back to how things have looked regarding tackling, being more physical, something that he's been preaching since, I'd imagine, Mike, day one. And you saw that in the first preseason game, to add to your point. So for me, what stood out was just how they looked in sync. It looked one from the first interception, how everything just synchronized. It was a cover 2, and Kayvon Wallace drops down, makes a huge hit, and Kobe is right where he needs to be. I thought the linebacker could have got more depth, but I'm not going to nitpick. When he get to all 22, I can really see if he need to get more depth on that zone drop there in cover 2.
I don't
but
think that's nitpicky there, brother. I think you just right on that. That's okay, though.
Well, nonetheless, I think I just liked how it was on a string. And that's kind of what we saw. That's not kind of. That is exactly what Legion of Boom was. Everything was on a string from the pass rush to the secondary. And I saw a glimpse of that in that specific play. And I'm sure there was more of it throughout the game. But I just loved how in sync the team was, how in sync the first team defense was, and how amped up they were. Even though I know to your point, and we've discussed this a lot, don't put you guys out there. But with what the scheme is asking of them, even though they didn't really show much, it's not as if they had linebackers in the A gaps and they're showing blitz. They didn't get cute out there. They played straightforward football and they executed what they needed to, and they beat up a Chargers team that played their second and third string guys, and that was fine with me. I'm okay with it. Let's see if the Seahawks can build on that and continue that success, because I imagine next week it'll be more of a challenge, just depending on who plays, I would assume, because I don't think Mike might put the defense back out there, but I don't know. He might say, screw it, defense, go out there, play another series. Let's see what you got. So we'll see.
That probably depends on how the joint practices go too, because those can get pretty feisty. So he could want to maybe protect his guys in the game. We'll see. We don't know. That's something else we're going to learn next week.
That's true. I forgot all about that. Those joint practices, man. If dudes getting beat up, hey, you know what? All y'all resting.
I did ask some of my Chargers people about who the Chargers did play on offense. Sounds like they obviously didn't have Justin Herbert. Like, that's a big did not play. They also didn't have their starting center. I think his name is something Bozeman.
They did have the right. Was it the right tackle that they drafted? I know he played.
So every lineman was a starter, but the center.
Oh,
wow. The Chargers, and then they didn't have obviously Herbert. And then at receiver, I'm not even sure their starting receivers are good, but they didn't. I think DJ Chark was the only
he dropped the
guy who's going to be part of the rotation. Yeah, so the Chargers, he had a grade on a curve to some extent, but I'm with you. Their starting defense was lights out. I was a little disappointed though, to your point about how vanilla they were. I was expecting to see him mix it up. He mixed it later though, but then with the first team defense, it was just all right, man up. Cover one, maybe.
Yeah.
Hey, Rick, go follow this. No games up front, no stunts. It was just Chenna, you rush the right tackle. Boye, you rush the left tackle. Leonard, you take double. It was just like I was hoping for him to mix it like he ended up doing later. Sending Artie on a blitz and some other guys on a blitz.
Mike, I'm pretty sure
gaps. I was disappointed.
I'm pretty sure we talked about it off wax, and you was like, "Yeah, I don't think he gonna show nothing." So I think you might have told me that, bro.
But. Yeah, but if the goal is to get those guys out there so they can rep the scheme, then do some of the schemey stuff. Maybe perhaps they did and we just couldn't see it. So I don't know.
That's true as well. We'll get the film and we'll get a chance to see what exactly what was going on. But for the most part, yeah, I like what the defense did. I know this is getting to the second string, but I love Byron Murphy's energy. He just became a wrecking ball once. Obviously, he probably was a little antsy to get out there, but once he settled in, I just saw him in the backfield quite a few times, bull rushing dudes, and he's getting under them. He's a short guy, and he's really strong, and I've seen the 2 times that I've been at practice, I've been able to see it, and then in the games, it's showing even more, and then obviously if you can combine his speed, quickness, and a few more moves, a few years down the line, man, you're looking at a really talented defensive player. So it was good seeing him get a tackle for loss, get pressure on the quarterback, and just find his role within that defense. Even though right now he's with the second team, I think consistency, he could find his role being subbed in and out, because as Macdonald mentioned, he going to get some burn in the preseason game. He did get some burn. I thought he was going to get more. I thought he was going to play a little longer, but I understand there's more guys on the roster that need an opportunity to try to make a case for themselves to make this team. So, and he's locked in. There's no question about it. So it was I thought a really good showing defensively.
Yeah, Byron kept beating up on I'm sorry, I'm looking up some of the Chargers roster. Not gonna lie to y'all. I don't have the Chargers roster down to just know the guys by jersey number. But number 64 was their backup center, and it was Brendan. Let's go with James. It's Jaimes. Let's just call it James, because I don't feel like looking up the pronunciation. But he was just whipping him. Byron Murphy, to your point. I mean, on the Kayvon Wallace and Kobe Bryant interception, you see Byron right there with his hand in Easton Stick's face. Ball ends up high. Oh my goodness, Easton is going to get killed in their film room, by the way, tomorrow. Because oh my God, he left Hayden Hurst out to dry. I don't even know if Hayden Hurst is healthy, because he got smoked in the knee on that play.
It didn't look good.
No, it did. That looked Oh, I look like that's that medicine ball that Devontae Adams was scared of getting thrown when he was on Netflix, complaining about Jimmy G. But Byron Murphy, he won that rep on. I think DJ James had a PBU on a 3rd and 10, I want to say, and Byron just walks this Brendan James cat back. There was a couple others. I posted a little thread of them where it's pretty much just Byron Murphy just beating up on 64. But that's what I want to see though. You know, because a lot of this, when I'm looking at the preseason, I look at who you're beating up on. Okay, well then, all right, is it some guy who's probably going to be in the UFL? Well then, okay, maybe grain of salt. I'll look at your technique and all that stuff too. But like, remember last year, we talked about this on the Jake Bobo interview actually recently. Jake hit Deron Bland with a nasty double move in the preseason. Deron Bland was first team All-Pro last year, you know, like pick 6 demon, you know, because he jumped stuff. But if you realize he jumped stuff, you can double move the hell out of him, which would, you know, hashtag more Bobo was able to do. Those type of reps, you know, you can feel like those translate a little bit more. You know, we'll see what Joe Alt ends up becoming their right tackle because Chenna just barbecued him on a 3rd and 10. Their final snap, actually, by the first team defense. Looks like they try to throw some crosser or whatever to DJ Chark. Doesn't get there because Chenna, I think, ends up hitting Easton Stump. You can kind of see them zoom in on Easton Stump after the play. I think Chenna got it. So stuff like that, you know, that Alt's a rookie, but also I want to see Chenna beat up on rookies. If I'm the you know, defensive coordinator, there's some things you just want to see. Again, that's why I wanted to know that was their first team O-line out there, which was good because I thought the Seahawks were better in the trenches up front. It looked like though 64 and then their right tackle were the weak links. That's your backup center and your rookie tackle. So some of that is to be expected, but to your point about just being, you know, in sync, I thought that was really good, particularly with the front and the back end. You know, I mentioned Byron had some pressure that led to some PBUs. Like, that's encouraging. Artie blitzed in the 2nd or 3rd quarter.
Oh, yeah, that was clean. Yeah.
Yeah, I think Boye ends up dropping. Artie ends up coming to still a 4-man rush.
Yeah.
So still a 4-man rush, but as you change who the 4 guys are, Artie came pretty clean. Quarterback has to get rid of it. I think Kobe ends up tipping it, and it almost goes
3 dudes are there, Mike. It was 3 dudes there.
Yeah.
Kobe, it was a great call. Everybody was where they needed to be. Usually you don't want to throw directly at the blitz, but, you know.
It just depends on what your read is. It can depend. But that's what I'm saying. I wanted to see that from the first team defense, you know.
I hear you.
A little bit, you know, run a little game up front, get Leonard.
They don't want to get him hurt, Mike. That's another thing. They're probably thinking, you know what? I don't want to do too much. Let's just vanilla it and make plays and get y'all a few series, get y'all, you know, hitting folks that aren't your teammates and get you off the field. And that's what it was about. I think maybe in the second game, depending on how you mentioned going up against the Titans for a few days, how that plays out, if guys are good to go. But then again, now that I'm thinking of it, they probably won't even play in the preseason game. I can't see that happening, scrimmaging against the Titans first team and all that, and then saying, oh yeah, by the way, you guys also, Mike ain't that type of dude, man. I've seen it. I came out to a practice and they was in t-shirts and shorts.
Yeah, the joint practices can probably get pretty violent, so we'll see. But you're right. Vanilla was probably the way to go, and it worked. You know, if it works, you know, that's the thing about football. You don't even got to get fancy if you can just trust your guys to beat the other guys. And that's what they were able to do. And honestly, that's you mentioned Legion of Boom earlier. That is at their core what they were able to do. It was just like, you can't block us because we got Cliff and Mike. You can't run by us because our corners play top down. You can't throw in the middle because we have Cam. You can't throw deep because we have Earl. You can't throw underneath because we have Bobby and KJ. So now you're not going to score at all.
Yeah, so running cover 3 again. Sorry.
And again, the best offense ever in the Super Bowl couldn't score. You know, that's like unreal stuff. Anyway, also mentioned Byron. You're right. He's going to get some burn. Similarly, I feel that way about Derek Hall, who is not a starter. He's a backup, quote unquote, but like he's going to be in the rotation, right? You know, with DT and Chenna and Mafe. And in particular, this is like a specific nuance I was looking at for D Hall, because D Hall, as you guys probably have seen, whether just pictures or clips, D Hall is strong as hell. Like, he doesn't skip leg day, and you can probably lift up pretty much any lineman in the league that ain't Lane Johnson, Laramie Tunsil, or Trent Williams. Like, generally speaking, any tackle, I should say. You can probably lift them off their feet. He's just strong. But in this league, that's not enough. you need multiple moves to be a consistently productive pass rusher. So I wanted to see in this game his speed stuff. Now I have to go back and really analyze it with some film to really look. But I thought he had some really good speed rushes today. I think he ended up getting a sack on the, remember there was like the muddy pocket. Byron has him in his grasp. He gets rid of that. I think Hall gets the credit for the sack, which is good because he created the initial pressure that led to Byron. And then ultimately the quarterback falls on the ground and he gets like a touch sack in that regard. But he like kind of flew all around the left tackle, number, I think, 67, whoever he is on their Chargers depth chart. That looks like a future UFL all-star there, buddy. Because that's Alex Leatherwood. Oh, he was the Raiders' first-round pick not too long ago. Well, I guess that's why they didn't keep him. Yeah, he was the 17th overall pick in 2021. Wow, he's already on another team? Yikes. Anyway, well, we see why.
Damn.
Guy's not good. But yeah, so they were beating up on 67 a little bit today, which again, you want to see that. But in particular for D Hall, I want to see how he did it. Now he had some power stuff too, but that's how he's going to win. I think is having multiple ways to get there. I want to see the same things from Daryl Taylor for what that's worth, because he's more of a speed guy. But I want to see him mix it up a little bit too. I mean, DT has more sack production, so I don't think it's as much of a concern. DT almost scratched 10 sacks before in the season, whereas D Hall not as much. But I was encouraged by that, even if the numbers may not stack up that much for D Hall. I bet you some of his advanced stuff will probably look good because he was winning one-on-one pretty consistently. I think he won again that led to some pressure at some point, if not another sack. That one by John Radigan. One of them linebackers. I think it was Radigan. So yeah, I was man, Chris. I was actually really encouraged by the defense, though, man. That was good stuff. Now you grade on the curve to some extent because again, that Chargers. I hit my editor. I was like, I don't know, even when healthy, how the Chargers are going to move the ball. I really don't know because that is not a good team. That is Justin Herbert, a maybe decent O-line, and that's it. It's a bunch of dudes who are just dudes, and that's it. So yeah, I'm not encouraged by that. But God bless Jim Harbaugh; he's got some work cut out for him. But yeah,
he can't go back to college football, so you better figure it out.
Definitely can't go back to Michigan. That boy, the sanctions on sanctions. It's just like Pete Carroll when he left USC. It's like, ooh, it got messy over here. Let me bounce. I'm out. But yeah, that was good stuff. But on the defense. Not a lot of explosives allowed either. I only counted 2 explosives through the air. One of them was the bust, which I think is on Marquise. I'd have to see the full thing. Mike Robb called it on Marquise, so I'll just blame it on Mike Robb's analysis. I think the other one was like a go ball, like D Williams or something like that, which
late in the game, I think,
yeah, and D's a converted corner. 2 guys on the team named D, by the way. Converted corner, used to be receiver. So, if he gives up some stuff in the fourth quarter of a game, I'm not really like tripping. At that point, it looked like they were just running a bunch of cover 3 anyway. You just trust your corners to do their stuff. So that was good. Not a lot of explosives. Again, not a lot of penalties, not a lot of missed tackles. In comparison, Chris, to the last few preseasons we've seen from Pete, that's been of the topic of discussion a few times is tackling. And not even just from the backup dudes, like guys who are going to play a lot, like, oh, man, Josh Jones can't tackle. Just like stuff like that, guys who are going to play. So that was of all the stuff between Byron, the starters basically allowing a bunch of nothing, pass rush being really good, run defense being really solid.
Run defense.
Yeah, I counted only 1 explosive run by a running back. It was a 16-yard run in the second quarter. I think the other one was by one of them deceptively fast quarterbacks the Chargers got. So not a lot of like explosives on the ground. Really solid stuff, man. I have high expectations for the defense. I think I'm a little higher than most. I think a lot of people will probably just want them to just not be terrible because they have been. Whereas I'm like, I thought it was really good that Jaron Reed, he had an interview, I think it was in the third quarter with Cliff, and he was like, what are you expecting from the defense this year?
Greatness.
And he said, greatness. Yeah, exactly. And I'm sitting here on the couch, or my mom's couch at least, and I'm like, yo, exactly. Like, why would y'all expect to be like, y'all should this as much as Mike Macdonald was talked up as like this genius dude, this defensive savant, like every adjective you can describe or use to describe a smart defensive person has been used on Mike Macdonald in the past 6 months. It's just smart, genius, brain, whatever, like defensive mind, all this stuff. All right, cool, man. Then go be great because you have a decent roster. That was another probably thing, the last thing on the defense. The roster is pretty solid. Like up front, there's a lot to be encouraged about. Super encouraged about the back end. Like if Artie Burns is your like 4th corner, that's a pretty decent cornerback room. And then the last thing is just a big question mark in the middle. Because like I said, like you mentioned on that play to Hayden Hurst, I don't gotta look at the all 22. You trust your eyes. You was right. Brother, gotta get some depth. Yeah, drop a little bit, and maybe I forget who it was in the game, but maybe he gets that PBU. I think that would probably be O'Connell, maybe, or Radigan. Maybe they get that PBU instead of Kavon having to just turn Hayden Hurst's knee into mush. So I think the all 22 is going to agree with you on that, because that's what I wrote down on my notes. I was like, I put depth underline. And went to go back and look at it. So we saw the same thing. The linebackers continue to be the main question, but then again, Tyrell Dotson hit the snot out of somebody. So
that counts.
He looks like he's ready to roll too. He looked like one of those guys who was just waiting to hit somebody who's not wearing a Seahawks jersey. So yeah, a lot of good stuff from the defense, which is that should have been the expectation when you go hire this defensive savant guy and hype him up for 6 months. Like, I expect you to go out and beat up on a pretty bad offense that the Chargers have.
Looking at the offense, though, we did talk about defense. Offense was also out there. A couple things that I noticed. One was tempo and how many times they got to the line with plenty of time on the clock, except for later in the game. There were a couple of times where they got a penalty or timeout. I think it was maybe 2 or maybe twice. But earlier in the game, Sam Howell was money. It was getting in, getting out, calling your checks, getting your plays in. And that was comforting seeing, because in the years past, preseason and in the regular season, what happens? They get up there 3 seconds, 2 seconds, oh, got to burn a timeout. And that has been an issue a little bit longer than it should have been. But that seemed to be ironed out for the most part. I was really impressed by that. And another thing was the pre-snap motion. Grubb is really moving everyone around. It's not as get to your sets, look around, snap it. You're seeing dudes move left to right, changing formation, and that just keeps the defense on their toes. The Seahawks literally grabbed 2 tight ends, shifted them from one side to the other, then brought another tight end in motion and ran the ball out of that, bringing the safety down. The defense, the Chargers, were trying to adjust. They dropped their safety down, but it was too late. I believe it was Farrell Brown on a counter run, comes across, drills him, and then Kenny McIntosh, he was able to get through, get around 7 or 8 yards, and you saw that just consistently. They come out empty, motion a guy in. It was Kenny McIntosh, motion him in. Then after he motions in, they motion Brady Russell. He then goes and runs a whip route, makes a couple guys miss, scores a touchdown. I just love
nice route.
Yeah, I just love the creativity, and seeing that with those guys I can only imagine what's going to happen when you have JSN, DK, and Tyler, and how much motion and just trying to confuse the defense with different type of looks. You don't have to run the same look over and over again, but at certain times you can, and just come out empty. Hey, you know what, Ken, come back in here. Oh, Tyler, come in motion, or a tight end. There's just so many possibilities within this offense that we haven't even seen yet. And then we talked a little bit about it, I want to say, earlier on the show before we got directly into defense, but Laviska Shenault, or maybe we talked about it off wax. I can't even keep up. Nonetheless,
yeah, I think that was off the record combo.
So we got to see what he's all about. RPO, go get it. Although one of them, oh my goodness, could have been a pick six.
Yeah, the RPO stuff scared me a little bit. That easily could have went south on a few of those RPOs today. And I don't think we got too bad, but almost.
Another downside was the screen. It didn't work out. I mentioned a funny tweet. I said, damn, the first team to successfully run a screen is going to win this game. Because at that point in time, I believe the Seahawks were 0 for 2 on screens, and then the Chargers just got blown up when they tried to screen. I think, man, I thought my iPad with me, but someone got in the backfield and just destroyed it. It might have been Tyrese Knight, actually. That's what it was. Tyrese Knight got in the backfield on the screen and just devoured it. So that was good to see. But back to the offense, I just liked how pre-snap motion, guys are moving around. I like the tempo. And Mike mentioned a clean game defensively. I thought it was pretty clean for the most part offensively, except for a few penalties here and there. I really liked how it played. The offensive line was okay. I'll go back and see how individually each guy did for the most part. Go and just look at the rookie, Christian Haynes. Okay, how did he fare? Who did he go up against on the DN? But for the most part, I was encouraged by what I saw from the offense. And then shout out Kenny McIntosh. I thought he had a really strong game, a really strong outing, and was able to run. And I didn't know he was a thumper like that. He has the ability to make dudes miss, but he also lowered his shoulder a couple of times and wasn't afraid to to lower the boom. And then one thing I did notice was there was a blitz that Kenny got caught up on and got kind of pushed back. And I know Coach Mike Macdonald mentioned that's something he's going to have to improve on. If he can really be reliable on those situational downs where they need someone to step in and make a key block, he might end up being a third running back. It's going to be close between him and Helani because that dude is he can run the football and he can also do a really good job of pass protecting. That's his strength. Protecting the quarterback on third down situations or whenever you need him to, and he's a force downhill. But Kenny McIntosh, he's going to have to figure out, find some consistency and being able to stand pack when a linebacker, safety, or corner is blitzing in and hold that off for the quarterback to get a good throw in.
You were correct on Tyrese Knight is who blew up that screen, by the way. That was in the first quarter. Have that written down. Also, Seahawks, apparently Shane Waldron took all the screen mojo with him to Chicago. Where they couldn't run a screen to say they laugh. Like, here we go again. We're back. I seen this movie before. The black guy dies first. Like I just seen it. I seen this before. I know it. It's bad screen games. Awful. But the first thing I looked at was the O-line. I was like, how's that look? I say, see no Charles Cross. I see no George Fant. I'm like, oh no, is Sam gonna die? Because Sam held the ball quite a bit in Washington. I know that you can see a sack number and ascribe a lot of that to O-line. And I think even Sam has mentioned, like, we were down a lot, so I was dropping back a lot. It's like, well, yeah, but, man, to lead the league in interceptions and sacks is like, some of that is you, brother. And I don't know how much, but it feels like a decent amount. And Washington clearly agrees. They shipped him out of there. So I was concerned about that. But I thought that on the non-blitzes, the O-line was good. Just off of first glance, I rewatched like a couple plays, not a ton. I didn't want to spend too much time before we recorded. But I thought on the non-blitzes, they were pretty solid. With the exception, I just saw one really bad whiff, and that was McClendon Curtis got whipped by, I think, a pretty high draft pick from last year. It was like Thule, some kid from USC, I want to say, is his name. Yeah, Thule. Not going to try to botch that. But anyway, he was the Chargers' second-round pick last year. Polynesian brother from USC. Good guy. Had a strong rookie year, I believe, too. He just whips McClendon, and that's the one where Sam got out of trouble and ended up getting rid of the ball. And I was like, see, even if the O-line's bad, you can avoid a sack. That's exactly what it looks like. That's why I don't buy that. It's like, oh, we were down or O-line stink. It's like, yeah, but you can control sacks. Like, that's a perfect play of, like, there's some control. Now, there's some when you don't, like those sacks. I think both sacks were blitzes, and one of them, I think the running back is Kenny McIntosh. He just gets wrecked by, I think it's Troy Dye, kid from either Oregon or USC. Can't remember where Troy Dye is from. I just know he played in the Pac-12. That's why I know his name. But he just wrecked the running back, and then that was over. Troy Dye's from Oregon. Man, he got a lot of facial hair. I just looked up his mugshot. But hey, dude, he looks real scruffy. Anyway, so on the non-blitzes, which is good, it was like, oh, okay. They know what they're doing. Everyone's holding up. I thought it was solid. I thought that they gave Sam and PJ some rush lanes. You've seen them kind of step up, which was good. You know, you don't want your centers just getting walked back like the Chargers center was doing. So there was no room to run. Sam and PJ had room to kind of step up, whether to throw or just to stand there and make some throws. Both Sam and PJ were able to stand in there and deliver some stuff. Now, I got broken up. Sam had back-to-back plays to Bobo, I want to say, that got PBU'd. But he clean pockets both times. I think the one to Jake he just threw late that got hit underneath. And then the one he threw, it was like third and a million, I think. It was a laser, but it's just late. You know, Sam's got a long release, so his stuff's sometimes late. And the corner, I think, broke on that. But the protection was clean both times. That's really what I was looking at. Sam throwing to Jake. If that happens in the regular season, something terrible went wrong, right? So I'm not too worried about that. But the protection, that do matter. So I thought that was really solid. The blitzes is an issue. One of them was a really nice, like, little stun up front. Slow-mo, that looked really bad for the O-line. So you got to fix that. And I think PJ got destroyed by just a free runner in the third or fourth quarter. I want to say number 41 just came and just took my man head off. That looked very painful. Who's number 41 on the Chargers? Oh, they got two 41s? Thomas Harper. Let's go with that. Safety just destroyed him. And I think the other time Sam got sacked, one was by a linebacker, another by a DB. So that just kind of shows you that pressure was their issue, like pressure packages, because the Chargers, they were not doing this vanilla stuff. They were like, we're going to throw some stuff at you because we don't trust our guys to, you know, at least the guys they had out there. I don't know how many defensive starters they had, but I was like hot and cold on the O-line. I just thought they were okay. And not going to lie, Chris, I thought it was going to be bad today because we've seen that in the preseason. We've seen where the backups are in there and it's just a mess. The backup quarterback can't function. The running backs can't run. We don't get to evaluate any of the receivers because there's no time, particularly down the field. Like they got to take some downfield shots today. Derek had a nice little, was that like a little over route? I think it was. Aesop caught a ball, a deep one from PJ Walker. Even the ball that Sam overthrows to Jake, like he had time for that, was deep down the middle. I think D. Eskridge gets overthrown too, but I think PJ had time on it. Also, you guys are seeing what we were seeing in practice with some of these like overthrows and stuff like that. It's like, yeah, there's a reason why, for my folks reading my stuff with The Athletic, is the reason why you don't see me talking much about PJ and Sam. There's a reason for that. They haven't been good, but that they were okay today when the protection was there. In my notes, I have never run a screen again. So yeah, Grubb, you fix that, buddy, because that was not.
Don't
good.
give up, Grubb. Don't listen to Mike. It's the preseason. Figure it out.
And the other thing that I had was the RPOs. I feel like the results on the RPOs were a lot more positive than the process, if that sounds right. Because like there were two that easily could have been house calls. One of them, I think, just gets knocked down. I think it's by PJ to D. Eskridge late in the game. That easily could have been like a 20-yard pick six. And then the one to Chenault that you mentioned, that I haven't seen a replay, so I don't know how that ball got by that DB. A hair faster, and that's 60 whatever yards the other way. Some of them got batted down. One to Cody White got batted down. I think another one got batted down. I just don't feel like that's solid. Now, I think part of that, now they ran a lot of RPO stuff, I believe, at Washington. I may have to double check that. And college in general just has a lot of that. But I would imagine the reason I'm not super worried about it, I just wrote it down for the purposes of the show, is if Grubb, as smart as I think Grubb is, he'll realize that you don't need to run that stuff with Geno and DK and Tyler in them. You don't need fancy RPO stuff. You can either run the ball or you can throw it. Like you can predetermine those things. Those does not need to be option anything. I think one time the QB made the wrong read. It was just, I'm not a big fan of that if it's with the starters. Like with Sam, perhaps. But even then, my homie texted me after one of them Sam runs. He was like, why are we doing a design run with a white guy?
Yeah, they gotta get rid of that. That was not needed. Sam just get the ball off. Yeah, that was rough.
That shouldn't even be in the book when Sam's in. I mean, there was just stuff like the overall RPO game. I was like, when they go back and look at it, even though it didn't go bad, there was a lot of potential for disaster. I feel like that was, and it felt like the Chargers in particular were sniffing it out as the game went on. Like, oh, they're just running out routes. Let's figure that out. Let's jump those. And the RPOs. Let's get our hands up. So yeah, not a big fan of those. But again, if we're talking about how we project towards the regular season, I'm not super worried because Grubb's probably smart enough to realize that either you hand it to Ken Walker or you throw it to DK. You don't really need to just give Geno the option there. You can just call to play. That's pretty smart offense there. Did I have any more notes on the O-line? I thought they were run blocking was decent. The run blocking was good, or at least decent enough. Disappointing goal line though. That was the last thing I had. You got to punch that in. Yeah, you got to punch that in because at that point, I'm pretty sure that was the Chargers' backup D-line. I think I'd have to double check with my Chargers guys on that. And if that's the case, yeah, I mean you can't. You got to punch that in. And I'm pretty sure everyone who I heard a post game from, Mike Macdonald, Sam Howell, I think even Brady Russell might have mentioned, like, yeah, you got to punch that in. Like, I'm glad that they were happy about the win, but I'm glad they noted that because that was also in my notes. Like, come on, y'all, 2 shots at the one. That's come on. You got 3 shots. I think one of them was a pass. So, yeah, 3 shots at the one. You got to get in the end zone, or maybe the Halani pass was at the 2, but it doesn't matter. You guys get the point. You got to score on those. But yeah, I mean, it wasn't bad because I think I went into that, like I mentioned, I had high expectations for the defense. I had very low for the offense. I was like, this could get ugly. We could watch a 3-3 ball game. And we did not. I was very encouraged by that, particularly with the O-line. Because, I mean, Chris, I think we've talked about it this offseason. The season relies on the O-line.
Yep.
Like, I don't even feel like that's, like, hyperbole to say. Like, the whole season depends on, can these guys run block? can these guys pass block? If the answer to both questions is yes, this team could be as good as it wants to be, man. I genuinely believe that. But if the answer to even just one of those questions is no, then Mike Macdonald ain't gonna do nothing no different than Pete. To be honest, like he could be a better defensive mind, but you got to play complementary ball at the end of the day. Your O-line can't block. I don't care how smart Grubb is. You can't run nothing when your O-line bad. You just can't. You just absolutely cannot. So I was encouraged by the fact that they weren't just honestly just god awful. We've seen that. We've seen that in the preseason many a time, whether on the Seahawks or other teams. O-linemen are just hard to find, so the backups usually stink. Today, they were okay. So I was encouraged by that.
Well, Mike, let's not waste not waste. I guess I should change the phrasing. Let's get to Twitter questions because we got a few of those. So to wrap things up, as we usually do, we're going to give some listeners, people that have been rocking with the show for years, to ask some questions. So we'll start off with, this is from Hustle Chill Son. Outside of Dotson, Baker, and Knight, what linebackers will make the roster? And does a guy like Jamie Sheriff, who is, I want to say an outside linebacker, does he have a shot to make the roster?
I'd say no on Jamie. And also, I loved, I know it's Twitter questions, but I wanted to explain why we had the banner there that says foundational first game. That was how Mike Macdonald described the game. And I'm with Chris. That was Chris's idea, but I'm with him. That was a really good description because there was a lot of today you can build on if you just never plan on running screens again. Everything else you can build on. The screens, don't do that.
Mike, you're gonna be wrong again. Come week 1, they're gonna successfully score a touchdown on a screen, and you're gonna be like, damn, I might have to hop back on the train. Like, hey man, the train is a mile gone. You're gonna have to get, I don't know how you're gonna catch up, but it's too late.
So I'm gonna get to Hustle Chill Son's question. On the screens, I think one of the other reasons I don't like when the Seahawks run them is I can't really quantify this, but it does feel like the OCs that the Seahawks have used the screens as like a get out of a jam thing. And it feels like that's very predictable. Like they'll lose 2 yards. So it's like, oh, 2nd and 12, let's get it back. Let's run a screen. Dog, if I can anticipate that, you don't think the defense can anticipate that? And then by like week 9, everybody know that. Okay, you get 3rd and 13. What's coming? Oh, a screen to Travis Homer. Like, come on, bro. Like we've seen that. Like I feel like that's the other problem. Whereas compared to teams like Minnesota and then even the Saints and the Drew Brees, like it felt like their screens, even the Rams in the
first and 10
era, yeah, it felt like they were more of a staple of the offense, like part of the scheme versus like 2nd and 14. You got so many plays for this, It's just I feel like that was a little bit of the problem, not totally the problem. I mean, Russ threw a pick 6 on a screen in a playoff game, like that wasn't a get out of a jam situation. That was just bad, but. In general, that's one of my issues with the way Seahawks have done screens. It just feels like and we ain't got nothing else, so it's a button we push versus like a foundational part of the offense, to borrow a bit of a Mike Macdonald phrase. But as far as the linebackers, I think they're only going to keep 4. I think you're looking at Baker, Dotson, Knight. Who honestly, Knight, I like him, man. He had a play. I wrote this down too. He like kind of ducked under Leatherwood and then made a tackle for like 1 or 2 yards. It was like really good linebacker play, real just fluid motion. It was really nice. Like it was one of those where it would be like on his highlight reel coming out of college if that was on his like film. So that was really solid. The 4th one, I would probably guess John Radigan, but if it's Patrick O'Connell, I'm not like upset either way. But I also got to be honest with you. I was telling somebody this the other day at practice. I was like, I'm not like super into investing that deep into your like 4th linebacker, mostly because I'm like, if it gets to that point where you need that guy to play anything other than mop up duty, whether you're getting blown out or the other team's you're blowing the other team out, you've just got much bigger problems, I feel like. And at that point, you're probably just calling a vet anyway, just like how they called Bruce in the past, and I think they've called on Luke Wilson in the past. They just called on another old guy recently too, like just how they called on what they got, Dwight Freeney, Adrian Peterson, Jason Peters. Like I feel like if they get to the point where it's like, we gotta start Patrick O'Connell. No shade to Patrick, but I just feel like they were just like, all right, who's the veteran that we can call off the couch? Probably is what they do more likely than play their like 4th guy. But I do think that'll be the 4. My guess would be Radigan, Knight, Baker, Dotson.
We got C Milf in the building. Great name, I guess. You know, hey. Who do you think running back 3 will be?
You know, this competition has been more exciting than I anticipated when I coming into camp. It wasn't. I was more so looking at it like, oh, how's Kenny McIntosh going to look? Instead, it's like, is Kenny McIntosh going to make the team because this George Holani guy is nice? And then, you know, Kobe Lewis makes a few runs in practice, and I'm like, wait a minute now. We got a full-on comp. And then I remembered, and this is a little unfortunate for Kenny, Kenny's a 7th-round pick who didn't play. He really doesn't have any offensive snaps and pads from last season. So to this staff, he's completely new, you know, and because of the draft capital, he's like, he's as disposable, probably disposable is harsh because he's a human being, but you guys get my point. He's as expendable. Let's use that word. That's nicer. Expendable. He's as expendable probably in the eyes of the coaching staff as a Holani or a Kobe Lewis, both of whom are undrafted rookies. Like, what's the difference between an undrafted rookie with this new staff versus a 7th-round pick from last year's team? You know what I'm saying? Like, it's the gap is like a lot. It's small compared to like you're not cutting a 2nd-round pick that you inherit. You know what I mean? So I think when I viewed it that way, I'm like, oh, this is a battle. And then I was really curious about how those 3 would look. And then Chris, I thought they all showed some stuff. I think Kobe runs real tough. I think George does too. But then on his touchdown, he showed like, oh, he can make some stuff happen, which is what you got to do sometime. Shout out to the 2 tight ends on that play. I think it was Mabry and Farrell Brown on George's touchdown. They sealed the edge without holding, because that was easily like when he cut outside, that's easily the type of play where you see holding, because they're expecting him to probably go on their inside shoulder. They turn, it's like, oh my goodness, George, where are you going, brother? But they didn't hold, so that was good. At least it didn't look like they held to me, so that was good. And I'm with you on Kenny, man. Kenny, though, I think to your point about him being a bruiser, if I look this up, I believe Kenny McIntosh is from South Florida. Either that or he's from like some player somewhere in Georgia. One of the two. He's from Fort Lauderdale. So I say that to say I ain't never gonna be surprised when them dudes just like some contact, no matter how they built. You know, just is kids from Florida, kids from Georgia, and then parts of Texas. That's where I'm just like, oh, okay. If you just like violence, no matter what position you play, even if you're a kicker, it'll just never surprise me. You know what I'm saying? That's just kind of how that goes. But if I had to make a prediction to stay with the answer to the question, I think my prediction would be Kenny. I think that would be. I'm not firm on that. I really think that could come down to who balls out in like the 3rd preseason game, or to your point, Chris, who is more trustworthy in pass pro, because that 3rd running back is probably going to get more reps as a pass protector / 3rd down guy than he is on 1st and 2nd down. And I remember the running backs coach, Chad Morton, used to tell me all the time, if you can't protect 3, you don't play. And that was, you know, in reference to protecting Russell. I'm sure this new running backs coach, who I believe has a long Polynesian name that I'd butcher if I tried to read. I think it's just Palamalu, actually. I wouldn't butcher that. Anyway, I'm sure KP is what they call him. I'm sure KP feels the same way. If you can't protect Geno, you can't play. I would guess that. So in that regard, it could come down to that more than anything between the tackles and rushing.
There it is. This one is from @Jimmy_Lee1. Is there any chance Kenny McIntosh can take the 2nd string running back spot from Zach Charbonnet?
So I don't want to say 0 shot, but I mean, like, how much more above 0 do I want to go here, Chris? 0.5?
I would. It's not happening. So
you're stuck. You're on 0.
Yeah, there's no chance. Zach is exactly what you need. You have K-Mac. Well, I guess I can't call him K-Mac.
K-Mac is good. Yeah, he goes by K-Mac, I think, a little bit here and there.
Fair and square. You got Kenny Mac that does every and anything. He can catch it. He can run it. He can run you over. He can run by you. Then you got Zach, who's a bruiser and can run you over. And that's a perfect gel, perfect mesh. And you know what Zach's good at? When it's 3rd and 3, he can get that. Or when it's 3rd and 9, you can rely on. I know last year he was kind of shaky, but I think he's gotten better this season, at least in the training camp. And what I've read and what I've seen from at least the pair of practice that I've been to, well, I guess the only one that I've been to where it's kind of physical. The thing is, he can do it. He has the build to do it, and I like that. Whereas with Kenny, Coach Macdonald basically went out there and said he needs to improve on it. That's not a problem you're worried about with Zach. You're more like, hey, Zach, we need you to have better hands out of the backfield. You know, here, can you do this better? Protecting the quarterback in pass pro is key. That's huge. And Kenny is still on the edge and verge of trying to be better at that. So I think he has a better shot of being the third string running back than he does surpassing Zach, who is number one. He played in the offense last season and was damn near. He was really good. I thought he was really good, actually. And a lot of people are probably thinking that Zach could be the number one, which I disagree with. A reporter was telling me, yeah, I think Charbonnet could be. I think he could be the number one guy. I said, no, there's no way. Do you know? You see number 9 there? Anytime he touches the ball, it could be a touchdown. Zach doesn't give you that. Sorry. And that's okay. Zach gives you other things that you love. But every time K9 touches the football, you're thinking, he might be able to score here. First and 10.
Even if that's not how it was drawn up.
Yeah, that's my point. That's all I said. And then I think a week later, he was like, Chris, after watching a few practices, I understand that. I'm like, how do you? I don't know what took you so long to see that. That's what Kenny can do.
What changed, brother?
He's been doing it since you got in the league. This isn't brand new, but I get it. Zach Charbonnet is on the scene. He's physical. He can get a lot of stuff done. He's a really talented back. But Kenny taking over that second spot, I just don't see it. So, Mike, sorry to jump in and poo-poo your parade. 0%. I know you're being a little nicer here and probably saying, I'll say 5%. I don't see it at all.
I didn't go as high as 5. I was in the 1 to 2 range, which is not too far from you. And the only thing I'll add here is K9 is special. Like, I think, how many carries did he have last year? The carry total is not like the end of the world, but he had 219 last year and 228 the year before that. I mean, no running back should probably get 300 anymore, but in a world where he gets 300 touches or carries, man, Ken could do some special stuff because of what you said. I think we'd have to really go through and count, but I think there's probably only 6 or 7 backs who, wherever they touch the ball, they could score on at any point in the field. It's really it may be even a shorter list than I'm giving it credit for. I think it's Ken. Now we just got to do it now because I teased it. It's Ken,
Christian,
it's Breece Hall, Christian McCaffrey. Help me out. Bijan. I think Bijan can score from anywhere. I believe in Bijan to score from anywhere.
Well, yeah, you had him in your fantasy. I bet you do.
Oh yeah. 2-time champ, maybe coming for 3. Bijan.
Who we missing?
I'm not sure on Gibbs. I don't know what his longest run is. I know he's very fast. I just don't know if I've seen it. I have to go check what Jahmyr Gibbs' longest run is. I'm much more confident on like Jonathan Taylor, for instance.
Yeah,
Perhaps.
He's a game changer. Oh, what about the Green Bay Packers? Jacobs.
I think he can score
tweener?
from anywhere on the Seahawks.
Okay, well, there that is. We all saw that game.
Yeah, no, you could put Jacobs in there because shoot, he put what was that 86-yarder for the win? It don't get much more like game breaker than that. And in that game, I believe he had 300 all-purpose yards or something like that. Yeah, so it was a ridiculous number. Oh, Derrick Henry as well, because I think he has multiple 99-yard runs. I want to say
that's tough to do. Yeah,
I know he has one against the Jaguars that was just disgusting.
Stiff on the same dude twice.
How many did we? We got.
I think it's 5 guys. Christian, Breece,
Ken.
Okay.
Let me see. Christian, Josh, Ken, Breece, Derek, Bijan. Are we missing anybody? That's
you said Jacobs. You said Jacobs maybe, so that's 7. So 6. We'll leave it at 6. 6 is fine.
Nah, we're missing somebody. We're gonna get yelled at here.
Brandon, we said Jacobs. Josh Jacobs. That was our 7. So there's 8.
Oh, I'll add 2. Saquon.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Saquon got the juice.
That's 8.
And I will add Raheem Mostert.
That's 9 because of the speed. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, his speed is different. Him and the A-Chain dude, you can put them together like the same. Anybody who plays for Mike Macdonald, exactly. Thank you. They're 9 together because them dudes is just like their speed is just
one whole touchdown.
I can't wait for that Miami game. I think Devon A-Chain averaged like 8 yards a carry last year, guys. By the way,
unreal.
This dude is nuts. Anyway, next question. I'm glad we did that. That was fun.
No worries. Let's see we'll go for it. This is from Brad. Which offensive lineman stood out? Do you think special teams will continue to struggle? He just missed the kick, but I feel it.
That's his only job to make the kicks. No, he also had a penalty too, I think, for not getting it in the zone too. So Jason Myers' special teams grade probably wasn't great. But I don't know if any offensive lineman stood out in a good or a bad way. I do think though, and I mentioned this to my editor too, during the game. I was like, man, I don't know what it is about Nick that he's getting these first team reps over Olu. Not to say that like Olu's like worlds better, but I do watch Olu, particularly in pass protection. He looks solid to me. I'm not like an O-line guru. Perhaps there's just some stuff with the center position that I'm not privy to in terms of protection calls or slides or whatever. Like I could be just not knowing that stuff, and maybe that has a lot to do with it. Nick is a veteran after all, but just physically, I feel like there's not this like gap to like demote Olu. But either way, I don't think it matters too much because Connor Williams is coming. So that changes math on it a little bit. The thing is, since I brought up Connor Williams, I'm kind of going off here this question a little bit. But my thing on Connor is, and Chris, I feel like this is something we all got to keep in mind. Connor he tore his ACL in December, I think December 11th. So he probably had surgery around then, 11th, 12th, 13th, or whatever. He's already back passing a physical, which is great. But I feel like if you just like look at his PFF grade and you're like, oh, he'll just be that right away. I feel like you got to give Connor some grace here. We don't know what type of shape he's in. He hasn't had time to train. His knee was cooked, and that's just kind of how that goes. So what kind of shape is he in? Can he pick up the scheme? Connor's probably a smart guy, but it takes time, right? Reps with Gino, reps with Sam or whatever, meetings, film, all that stuff. Like it does take time. I know he's a veteran, but and then how healthy is the knee, right? Like how much stuff can, because your center can't come off the field, right? He's not like a receiver, or a DB. Can he play 100% of the snaps, taking on 300-pounders on that surgically repaired knee? And how soon can he do that? What shape he's in? All these I feel like are legitimate questions, which is why I think it's going to be a competition for the center role, even though they just gave Connor like $3 million guaranteed or whatever, according to his agent. So that's all to keep in mind with the center room. I think Connor, all things considered, is probably a better player than both Olu and Nick, but there's a reason he was available like in early August, right? Like surgically repaired knee, new scheme. So we'll see how that goes. I'm optimistic, but I feel like there's a little bit too much of, ooh, look at his PFF grade. We good. I'm just like, give the guy with the surgically repaired knee a little grace. It takes a lot to get in shape to play O-line. Give Abe Lucas that same grace for what that's worth, too. Who knows how much training he was able to do with his surgically repaired knee. There's a lot of weight on these knees with these big guys.
Another familiar listener, Chris Leeper at Rosebug_22. What is with Myers and PATs? He's so good on field goals. It's got to be mental at this point, right?
I mean, I don't know enough about kicking to give you any other analysis than it being mental, to be honest. I mean, I can't break down the schematics of the long snap, of the hold, other than laces out, and the kick and the follow through. I'd be lying to you guys if I pretended to know that stuff. I don't. I'm the king of #NeverKick. So in my mind, they don't even need Jason for that part of the game, to be honest. Get your 2-point packages out. Why not? 2's more than 1. I trust, honestly, with this offense, with a lot of offenses, to be honest, I trust the offense to get 2 yards at a high enough rate to justify going for it at least like half the time. Because I think you probably only you got to get, man, I'm going to sound bad at math here, but what do you got to get on your 2 points to justify it? You got to get it, 50% of the time or something like that? Since 2, is double 1, assuming that all of your kicks would be good 100%. Yeah, let's pretend that math checks out. Like, I feel like this offense could probably get them like 60% of the time, I think. Particularly if the run blocking is a lot better. Because, I mean, Doug, K9 getting 2 yards? Zach Charbonnet getting 2 yards? Go for 2 every time. Grubb, I got 2 pieces of advice for you, man. That's it. 2, at least right now. No more screens. Go for 2.
You might want to talk to Mike about that one. I don't know how much say Grubb gonna have. Hey, man, we're gonna go for 2.
He's got to. He's OC. He got to.
Mike Macdonald's head coach, though.
Yeah, but he's got a lot to worry about on game day. I was thinking about that today. I'm like, today the defense was solid, right? But it's like, what if they're struggling? He needs to make an in-game adjustment. You do that type of stuff while the offense is on the field, So you can watch, but you got to go lock in, you know what I'm saying? So, yeah, I think the Grubb, go for 2. No more screens. You're welcome.
Phil Birnbaum, another familiar listener, who has the edge at right guard and also punt returner. Who would you start at those positions? At that position, I should say.
Let's start with punt returner because I'm biased. We just had Aesop on the show. I would have had a Coug out there. Also, I feel like there's not like a. Did anybody else run a punt back today besides Aesop? I think he was the only one. What did he get? Like 10 yards on it? Made a guy miss. Let's see. Punt returns. Looks like D had one for 3 yards. Aesop for 10 yards. And then the other D lost 2 yards. So, yeah, I mean, I'll put Aesop back there. I also think his track record is probably the best of everyone who they're auditioning for it. You know, Aesop had, I mean, going back to when he was with the Saints, I just think statistically and on film, you already have that. He has that in his bag. I think he's probably the shiftiest of the guys they're putting back there that aren't Jackson. So, like, in a perfect world, that's probably what I would do. I mean, it makes sense. I think he was, like, basically their backup punt returner last year. I'm pretty sure. Because I think DJ Dallas missed a game, and that's the game that I want to say Aesop was up. I think it was the Cardinals at home. So, he's not too – they've already trusted him to do it, and I feel like they should keep doing that. I don't think that's what's going to happen just because how the roster will shake out. But if you ask me, that's probably where I would go. And what was the other one? Oh, right guard. So right guard is kind of interesting here because I got to go out. Chris, one of the people I'm going to go back and look at when the film come out is Christian Haynes, because Christian Haynes in practice was having some struggles anchoring up with Jay Reed, with Byron Murphy. And, I mean, those guys are probably going to be two really good defensive tackles, so that is what it is. But at the same time, if you're going to start, those are the type of players you're going to see. You're going to see better defensive tackles too than Jerry Reed, and better ones than Byron Murphy, and you can not get walked back. You know what I mean? So I was a little concerned about that going in. I don't know how he played on Saturday. I'd have to really go back and study that. But I bring that up to say I think you got to start Anthony Bradford. I feel like just from a build standpoint, it's a lot harder to walk him back. Like I remember one day Anthony Bradford and Christian Haynes were sitting next to each other, and I was just looking at both of their like lowers, you know, in like the non-zestiest way possible. I was just looking like, yo, Anthony Bradford stacked up. You know, like this is a hard dude to move. And I look at Christian, I'm like, oh, okay, I can see maybe why he's getting moved a little bit more. I don't know how much each of them weighs, but I will go with Anthony right now. Yeah, I feel like he's just a little better anchoring up in pass pro right now. I mean, and Anthony in the run game is so strong. He's so strong. Like they used to do with D-Lou a little bit last year, where you could just follow D-Lou to the promised land on your run game. I feel like they're going to be able to do that with Anthony this year.
This one is from Daniel Twit. Let's see here. Was Howell better than he has been in camp? Also, learn to tackle still a thing, or am I critical in that regard?
Say learn to tackle is still a thing?
Yeah, learning to tackle, is that still a thing, or am I too critical in that regard? Yep.
Oh, no, I thought they tackled pretty well, like we talked about earlier in the show. But as it pertains to Sam, yeah, I think so. I mean, guys, there was a stretch there, man, where Sam looked unplayable. I mean, he got better, but I'm just talking like, and some of these were open practices. So if you guys have been to camp, you've probably seen it, man. Balls that are just sailing, man. And in particular, I can't remember if we've talked about this on the show or not, but Mike Macdonald's defense, they're basically daring you to throw it outside the numbers, you know, because that's harder for quarterbacks to hit with consistency. And Sam and PJ in practice really struggled with that. Like out routes, damn near hitting fans and stuff like that. Like there's a Boeing logo on the side of the field by the fans. If you go to the practices, you'll see it's about 5 yards away from the sideline, and they're just hitting it with consistency. And that's bad because that means you're sailing guys. Like they're overthrowing Jake Bobo, and it's like Jake is tall with hops. To overthrow Jake means you put that in a bad spot. So, yeah, I thought Sam, compared to practice, this was a much better Sam. Like when Mike Macdonald said, I thought Sam played well. That was his quote after the game today. I can tell he means that. I can really tell he means that because I think all things considered he did, particularly because Mike watched all that tape from practice. So he was like, oh boy, he's probably like, this could get dicey. And then Sam did okay. Not every throw was money, but I just thought relative to practice, it was worlds better. PJ too, relative to practice. I mean, there were just days in practice where they were just it was really hard for me to evaluate anybody else because all the passes were so off target. So they did much better. And I think the O-line being better was part of that too, but they were just better Yeah, it just felt like they had more confidence. And it didn't. They were trying to get outside the numbers a lot more today too. A lot of that RPO stuff. They were just a little better at it today. A couple out routes here. I think both of Jackson's catches were out routes. Like Sam, those Jackson catches are a good example. I don't have like the replay of them, but Jackson I think caught 2 out routes today. Those were a lot smoother than what we've seen in practice. They were not hitting those with consistency in practice. That's probably the best example of how much better they were. The deep stuff still is kind of whatever, but getting outside the numbers in the intermediate and short, I thought Sam and PJ were much better than they have been in practice.
Dan Chu _Dan Chu. Is Marquise Blair going to make the squad?
I'm not sure. Right now, I'd lean towards no. I think right now, you're probably looking at 10 DBs making the team. I'm probably going to do a 53-man roster projection at some point. But in my head, I have 10 DBs, 6 corners, and 4 safeties. I think off the top of my head, let's see if I get this. Spoon, Trey, Reek, Artie, DJ James, Nehemiah Pritchett. Yep, that's 6. And then Julian, Rayshawn, Kavon, Kobe. Yeah, sounds about right. 10 DBs. And then you can put everybody else in the practice squad. That sounds about right, I would say. Yeah, so I would guess no. That'd be my guess. I just feel like they're kind of decent there. A lot better than I kind of thought going into camp, I guess. I wasn't as high on the safeties. I'm a little higher on them now. After watching them a little bit, talking through with some plays with them privately, some good stuff. But no, I wouldn't guess so unless he really starts turning up, in particular with the ball production. Like he's a hammer. Like even I think he took out D. Williams today on accident. Like Marquise is a hammer. I just want to see him make more plays on the ball. He had a PBU today though in the end zone, so that was encouraging. But I think it's going to take a lot to leapfrog Kobe, Kavon for one of those backup spots.
This last one comes from Big Ass Eyebrows. One of your favorites, Mike. With the first game under Mike's belt, what seems different thus far from what you can tell from the last couple years? Side note, Byron Murphy is that dude, huh? Yes, he is.
Yeah, no, Byron Murphy. Yeah, that was encouraging, man. You just want to see him whip up on the dude in front of him, what seems different. Yeah, I think the operations being so clean and the penalties stuff, that stood out, particularly on defense. Offense was a little not as clean as you would like you mentioned, Chris, a couple delay of game. I think they had a delay of game, multiple ineligible man downfield penalties. I believe those were on RPOs. You just get rid of the RPO stuff, honestly. Not because it's a run pass option, but I don't think you should run with Sam. So I feel like it's not really an option. You know what I mean? So I would just ditch that stuff. I guess I have 3 pieces of advice for Grubb. Again, ditch the RPOs with Sam. Go for 2. No more screens. Yeah, I think that the cleanness of it stood out. Not to say Pete Carroll never had no clean preseasons, to be fair to Pete. But that part, as compared to the last few years, that is kind of stood out as different. I think that Mike, in terms of demeanor, now they didn't have that many ISO shots of him, and I wasn't at the game, but just going off the camera stuff, Mike seems a lot more even-keeled. Pete was very demonstrative on the sidelines. I think part of that is he wasn't calling plays. So he's really just there for challenge flags and vibes, right? So, and it looked like it. He chewing the gum, he arguing with the refs, he turning up, Pete, he's just a big ball of, 70-year-old energy. Whereas Mike seems a lot more stoic. He seems a lot more locked, maybe not more locked in, but locked in a more noticeable way. I don't even know if he celebrated Kobe's pick. I just feel like he just stood there, which is fine. It just kind of is what it is. But that's one of the differences just in terms of temperament. And Pete was a lot more like the ebbs and flows of the game. He wore those a lot more on his sleeve. You could just tell. Like you could look at, if you just weren't even watching the game, you could watch Pete and tell if the Seahawks were winning or losing. Whereas you might not be able to do that with Mike. Maybe it was just one game. But just to answer the question, that is something that I noticed. And he seems... Yeah, he just feels more like a ball nerd where he'll when Mike's gonna get excited right now on the plane on his iPad when he's watching the film back, he's in the front row just screaming about some run fit, just when everybody sleep. Well, it's not a long flight from LA, but if there's some people sleep on the plane, they probably got coach in the front. Yeah, hell yeah. And it's like, what the hell is coach talking about? And it's the Tyrese Knight play I was talking about where he slips the tackle. You know, that seems like Mike gets really fired up when he's in his office or in film, like, yeah, this is how we do it, you know. So it's subtle differences. We'll learn more about Mike as we go. I feel like joint practices will tell us quite a bit. But also, I think what stood out too, this wasn't a game thing, but how Mike handled them just trying to beat the hell out of each other at practice the other day. I thought he would be much more of a hard ass on that. And instead, he was more like, hey, yo, y'all feisty is good. Don't kill each other. Ready? Break. And that was it, which is not how I thought he would have responded to DK taking off Trey Brown's helmet and hitting Kevon Wallace in the head. That's just so bad. But even Mike was like, you know what? Y'all are active. I understand. You're tired of playing each other. It's good. Don't kill each other. Let's get back to practice. And I thought that was good. And then he just did a shirts practice in shorts the next day, which was good. So yeah, we're learning about him as we go, which is good. And it's not bad or good, I guess. The stuff I'm mentioning, it's just a little different from Pete. I think Pete would have kind of came out and kind of reprimanded them a little bit more. Like, I think he suspended Frank for like a practice or two when he broke Jermaine Ifedi's nose. You know what I mean? Now, maybe if DK would have broke Kevon's nose, maybe he does the same thing. I'm not sure. But also, Trey Brown punched Jake in the face, and he was bleeding all of practice. And it seems like Trey Brown had no discipline for that. So maybe Mike just don't care. I don't know. We're learning about Mike in that regard because I didn't see it, but apparently he hit Jake clean, and you could see the blood on Jake's jersey. He was signing autographs with blood on the front of his jersey after practice. Boy, he's tough. But yeah, those are some of the things that stand out that are a little different so far between Mike and Pete.
Well, those are the Twitter questions. We thank each and every single one of you for asking. Appreciate all the love and support. We back at it. Another season. First preseason game is under wraps. We will come back to you again later next week. And looking forward to hearing some stuff from joint practice. I'm sure Mike's going to be taking a lot of notes. He can have some stories up. Maybe he gets
can't wait.
Exclusive. You know who you got to talk to? Our boy, Tavondre. Or not, what's his name? Big boy that the Tennessee Titans drafted. We thought the Seahawks should have got for defensive tackle.
Yeah, Tavondre Sweat. Yeah.
Maybe try to talk to Tavondre. That should be fun. I don't know if that's a possibility, but I feel like that'd be pretty fun.
Yeah, I got to figure out the coverage part of it because they're going to be on so many different fields at one time. You know,
that's true. Yeah.
You know, because when Gino and them are going against the Titans defense on another field will be the Seahawks defense versus Will Levis and them. I don't know if I'll be able to see those at the same time. So I have to probably do one or combine with some of the Titans writers and we share, trade, informate. I don't know. I was going to figure that out this week. But yeah, I'm going to try. I can't wait. I think joint practices are a bad idea, but I'll watch them all the same. I think they're a bad idea. I don't think they're worth it. But I'm going to watch. They're paying for me to go to Nashville, so to Nashville I go. And until Nashville, thank you for tuning in to the Seahawks Man to Man podcast. We appreciate the love. Like, subscribe, tell a friend, Appreciate the love and support. Spotify, Apple, Blue Wire, wherever, YouTube. Thank you. We will catch you next week.